I've been looking at the news lately, and it's something I don't normally do. I've taken a long break from like reading newspapers and studying, what they call global issues and so on, and mainly because the the issue with Gaza and the incredible, amount of firepower being used by the IDF into civilian areas just got me interested in things as a whole. Something is definitely up. There's something going down. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I think we're on the cusp of something big. I've got several reasons for this. There's certain things have sort of set off my red flags. The first one was when the Gaza thing kicked off. This happens every so often with the Israeli psychopath government. They basically bully the prisoners in Gaza and the West Bank just to sort of shake them up, and that wasn't that unexpected. But one thing that happened in the midst of that was the shooting down of the Malaysian airliner in the Ukraine, and the psychotic and the visceral need of the American media, particularly the British, surprisingly, to blame Vladimir Putin directly for it. And then suddenly that story dies very, very quickly. It died very quickly because I think many people figured out that there was something very dodgy about it. The fact that it was a Malaysian plane and one had went missing earlier on in the year over the Pacific, and all these kinds of other things. It went off its flight path. It was shot down. It was just so many strange things involved around that, and I still don't know what to make of that story. But I think that was the point of it. It was put out there for that reason, to cause confusion and to create a diversion. And at the same time, we have this ISIS bunch in Syria, and now they're tweeting pictures of dead American troops saying, come on back to Iraq. We're waiting for you." But they also sent one to. We don't know who ISIS is really. This could be not. They could not even exist for all we know. They could be like something from George Orwell, where they're invented. They're an invented enemy. And there was one thing that said that quite. It gave me chills when I read it. One of the tweets that were sent allegedly to the U.S. by one of the alleged ISIS people was that we will attack every single US embassy in the world if you dare to invade Iraq. Now, this is something we should be quite concerned about, because prior to 9/11, we had a series of attacks on US embassies in Dar es Salaam and in Nairobi in Kenya, which were attributed to another fictional organization called Al Qaeda. And this was basically the lead up to what was to become the war on terror. Added to this, we had that very bizarre speech by the head of the IMF, which she was deliberately talking about numerology, and she was definitely giving codes. Anyone who studied espionage would know that that speech was a code. It was a coded speech, very similar to what diplomats give when they give public addresses. In the old days, before the internet, they would have dinner parties and the diplomats would go there and they would tell a story about a little boy in their home country who, he went to the well one day and there was a witch, or whatever the folk tale would be, but it was a made up folk tale, and it would be filled with cues and triggers for their own diplomats in that country to prepare for something, or their own agents inside that country, or the spies working for the other side to prepare for something. And that was very much how that IMF speech came across. Now, putting all these factors together, coupled with the fact that Obama is basically a damn squid president who's looking to end his career on a high, and his reputation has been deliberately diminished. And I recently was contacted by someone in the US who told me they did a survey, that the survey reports were trashed, that most Americans said that Vladimir Putin was the greatest leader in the world today. Now, and so they're going to do something. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if NATO are going to invade Iraq again. I don't even know. I couldn't even put my finger on what's going to happen, if there's going to be some kind of a terrorist attack that will be used as an impetus for war, if there'll be some kind of hijackings, if this ISIS thing spills over into Lebanon and even into Turkey, and even if ISIS is real. But one thing I do know, the fog of war is usually the clearest indication that the dark forces are working behind the scenes. If you look at the history of World War II and you study in particular the machinations surrounding the enclave of Danzig on the Danzig corridor between Poland and Germany, and the various things that went on during the mid to late 1930s, you could see that basically the chess pieces were being put in place for World War II. And there's an element of silence and an element of deception, and there's a fog and a mist that it tells you more than a cast iron, document planning the future would ever tell you. For a long time in this movement, we've been hearing about, they're planning World War III has always been on. They've been planning World War III. The simple fact is World War I has never ended. That's really what people have. The Great War is still continuing 100 years later. They just tell you these things. These are just memes you're told to regurgitate. But there's a period that's going on right now that it's almost like a psychic reconstruction of the elite's mindset. And I'm quite concerned because I'm not the kind of one who's paranoid about things, but there's a vested interest in something major going down as a distraction. And I don't predict these things normally because in every other case I've always known they were rubbish. They were just like sensationalism by the Alex Jones channel. But this time it's different. You have a British government that's desperately trying to put the lid on the powerful paedophile rings. You've got the issue in Gaza that's really making people turn against the West and NATO, particularly people in the West. And you've also got a damn squid president in the United States and a very ineffectual, shall we say, administration who's desperate to try and make its mark on history. And plus you have Hillary Clinton now, a vicious warmongering psychopath moving into center stage. I would be very wary and keep your eye open for the next few months. I reckon that we're going to have a very interesting autumn, and I think it will be, I hope it doesn't happen, but if it's going to happen, if something is going to go down, it's going to go down in either September, October, or November. Thank you.